Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of the Sporting Fix. We have been through a lot this weekend, through footy and a bit of cricket as well, and we are only anticipating the best as we enter this Saturday to the grand final of 2023. There's been a lot to cover this week with obviously the two prelim finals, the Brownlow, the build up to the grand final, a bit of cricket. So we'll get all of that in today, and let's just get straight into it as we always do. The wrap up of the two prelim finals, Collingwood versus the Giants, to start off with on Friday. It was an unbelievable match. Collingwood winning by a point. Obviously, DeGoey, he was unmatched. I just can't get past the bloke. I mentioned before the finals actually occurred that he would most likely be the Norm Smith medalist, and he obviously hasn't been in the grand final yet, but he's playing one hell of a finals series, and I feel like he's only in the box seat to win the Norm Smith medal, so I'd be happy if he does do so. He had 34 disposals. We'll talk about him a little bit later, but it's more about Collingwood. So the last prelim they had, they lose by a point. And now they win by a point. So it's a massive turnaround. They finally get to feature in a grand final since 2018 from that heartbreaking loss against the West Coast Eagles. Against Brisbane Lions, which I think a lot of people thought was going to happen. I tipped Brisbane and Collingwood in the grand final, and it's happened to fall that way. It was a scrappy game. It was quite fiery. And obviously low scoring due to the intense pressure that was applied by both teams. There were a few controversial decisions made. There were high tackles that should have been awarded. There were a lot of potential controversial decisions that occurred in that match. But it was just the Giants surprisingly had 20 odd more disposals than Collingwood. It's just they didn't use it as well. Collingwood had a disposal efficiency of 70 compared to the Giants 67. So it's not a big gap, but it's a handy gap to have. You have to use the pill if you want to win games, and Collingwood did it then. They were just all over him in the stoppages though. So they had 44 clearances, Collingwood, and the Giants had 26 clearances. So they were all over him in the stoppage and congested areas. But it was just they couldn't get a hold of DeGoey late in that last quarter. We'll get to him right now. He had 34 disposals, 17 of them contested. He had 13 clearances. They just couldn't get him on late in that last quarter, Collingwood, which could have proved costly. Luckily for them, they got the job done. But it was off the back. He used it so well. So 74% disposal efficiency. He was just everywhere. There's not a lot to be said about him. He's just such an explosive player. He's dynamic. Everything you want from a player in September, he delivers. So he was so good. We talk about your big players. He's one of them. But then also Josh Kelly, who had 34 disposals as well, 16 of them contested. Unfortunately, it was him that sort of led the way for the Giants, but they just couldn't get the job done. It was heartbreak for him and Toby Greenman and everyone involved at the club. But it's even more heartbreak for Dan McStay. He's been in the team all year and he just gets injured and will miss the grand final. It's just pure heartbreak. He's been at the club. He's been producing very good performances for quite some time this year. And then the one moment where you have to perform at the big stage, at the big dance in front of 100,000 people, where you get the chance, a once-in-a-lifetime chance to play in a grand final, and he just can't due to an injury. It is heartbreaking, but the question is, who replaces him? Who replaces him? Is it going to be Ginnivan? Is it going to be John Noble? It's going to be interesting who they pick. I feel like it will be Ginnivan, only because he's been the substitute for quite some time, and then I feel like John Noble will become the substitute. But it's going to be an interesting debate from here on until the lineups are mentioned. But I thought Mason Cox was pivotal as well. 27 hitouts and a goal. He was quite dominant in the ruck. But yeah, the bulk of the work was done by DeGoey. So Collingwood advance to the grand final in 2023 against Brisbane, obviously. So we now go to the other game. So Brisbane and Carlton. It was a fast start, a rapid start from the Blues. They got out of the blocks so quick. It was 5 goals, 1-31 to 1 goal, 2-8. So they were all over him like a rash. There was nothing Brisbane were doing that was working. I was watching the game and my mouth was open and I was just in absolute awe about how it could have been a Carlton-Collingwood grand final, and we'll talk about the anticipation if it had been. But it turned out it wasn't. The second quarter, Brisbane came back, and it was just, the scoring end was obviously to the left of screen, but it was good because Sam Walsh, he was brilliant for the Blues, 33 disposals, 14 contested. Harry Mackay had a bit of confidence in the first, plucking a few grabs and hitting the scoreboard, but it sort of drained out a little bit afterwards. Carlton, they didn't really lose due to not hitting targets. They more lost around the clearances and stoppages. Lions had 14 more clearances. That's thanks to McInerney, who was massive. He was massive in that game. 38 hit-outs. He just gives his midfielders the best chance to go forward more often than not. The way he holds himself in the ruck contest is unmatched, and he gives his midfielders every possibility to go forward, and he did it then, and that's how big it is. So Carlton, they used the ball well. They were more effective with their possession. They just couldn't, dominate Brisbane in the stoppage area of football. They used the pill better. They just couldn't beat them in the stoppages. But I have to mention Kyden Coleman. He played the game of his life. His ability to hit a target from anywhere should be praised all around the world. He was biting off kicks in the centre of the ground, hitting players lace out, which resulted in scoring opportunities. He had an 86% disposal efficiency. They've got a good bloke, Brisbane. They've found a good bloke, Kyden Coleman. He is only 23, and he could easily be the next big thing. So Brisbane, they have to hold on to him for their dear life, because the way he played on the weekend was completely unbelievable, and he will be a threat in the future. The way he just holds himself up, and he is a very satisfying left foot kick. I just can't get over the fact how dominating he is. It was a game of his life. I just can't get past the bloke. But not only him, it was Joe Danaher who hit the scoreboard 2 goals. McInerney kicked 2 goals. McCarthy kicked 2 goals. I know Cameron wasn't that accurate. He kicked 1 goal 3, but he was in and amongst the scoring, which is important as a forward. So I guess everyone did their job in the second half, or maybe even the 3 quarters. It was just the first quarter was quite deplorable from Brisbane's point of view. But what could have been the most anticipated grand final in history of Carlton, if Carlton won, which is not to be, unfortunately. But imagine the build-up. I don't want to spend too long dwelling the fact that Carlton lost, but I just want to say, imagine if it was a Collingwood-Carlton grand final. The build-up, the anticipation, the news resulting, moving into the grand final would be absolutely massive. You talk about your big clubs, they don't get any bigger than that. You'd have, obviously, 100,024 in the house. You'd have probably about half of Melbourne celebrating outside their G. It would just be a massive spectacle. I was sort of hoping Carlton would have won. I tipped Brisbane, obviously, but I just wanted that anticipation, the build-up, the 2 Victorian clubs fighting it out. Unfortunately not to be, but credit to Brisbane for getting the job done, for beating the Blues, who have been on quite a good winning streak. If you look back at the Carlton's year from obviously when they beat Gold Coast to now, it was brilliant. So I guess they can take that into the future and try and win a premiership pretty soon. But we look at the grand final preview. So this Saturday, it's going to be unbelievable. Brisbane-Collingwood. I feel like Collingwood win. I've talked about this a bit, but Collingwood do win for me. The news around the Lions about they just can't play at the MCG. I don't know if that'll be present on Saturday, but as Zorko said, it's just another oval. Right, so if Brisbane play their best footy, if they bring the heat, if they dominate stoppages, if they hit the scoreboard, if they do what they are best at. It doesn't matter if they play on Mars. They can beat anyone on any given day. They say the MCG is pretty much hell for them, but it all comes down to performing on the day, and if they do so, they can easily beat Collingwood. So it's just a matter of whether they show up and whether they take it up to the ladder leaders. It's a lot of anticipation building up to this match. It's going to be interesting. It's a shame Dan McStay is out, but who will come in? Will it be Noble or Ginnivan? We'll have to wait and see. 4 days, exactly 4 days from now, the grand final will be in our presence, and I just can't wait. I feel like Jordan De Goey will win the Norm Smith. I explained it a bit earlier, just the way he holds himself up in September is unlike any other. His burstingness, his passion, his grit, his determination, everything that makes a true footballer good, Jordan possesses. So he gets the Norm Smith for me. Dacos will play well. I just don't think he'll win the Norm Smith, but you never know. So obviously, Lachie Neale winning the Brownlow. We'll get to the Brownlow in a second, but Lachie Neale winning the Brownlow, he'll move into the grand final. I wonder how he's feeling, whether it'll be quite stressful or chaotic. I hope he's quite settled after winning a Brownlow and then moving into a grand final. It'd be interesting to see. But before we get to the Brownlow Medal, we'll just talk a bit of news away from the footy field. So Todd Goldstein, a lot of people would have heard this, he's not going to play for North in 2024. He's been an absolute warrior for so long, and I hope he can bring some experience to the club he desires. What he did for North and what he's continuing to do, I guess, before he leaves has just been so good. He's a 300-plus game player. He's been so loyal. He's played at a club that I guess hasn't been as strong as they would have liked it, but he's just stuck through the hard times, and I hope he does become a premiership player, whoever he chooses, because he deserves to. The fight, the grit and everything he's produced in his career, he deserves to be a premiership player, and I hope he will be. So Todd Goldstein, whoever he chooses, it might be Essendon. I feel like it will be Essendon, but we'll just have to wait and see. Jacob Kazitsky requested a trade to Richmond from the Hawks, and then talking about Richmond, Adam Uze, the coach of Richmond. We'll see how he goes after Andrew McQualter being kicked out, dimmer to the sun. So there's a bit going on. And then also Massimo D'Ambrosio to leave Essendon. So he's requesting a trade to Hawthorn. He's a classy left kick. I'd like to see the bloke grow. The main moment he's had this year was when he kicked that winning goal against North with about a minute left. It was a brilliant left foot kick snap from about 40 metres. And that's the main thing I've seen from him, is a beautiful looking left foot kick, and I hope the Hawks can do something with him, because I love always seeing players reach their top level at the top level of the AFL. So not only him, Marbiel Chol. So I was actually, this afternoon before we just recorded this, I saw recently that North Melbourne are in the mix now to steal Marbiel Chol, along with Brisbane, along with Adelaide, and along with Hawthorn. So Hawthorn are involved with a lot of trades at the moment. Whether Marbiel Chol chooses either one of them, I just hope whatever he does, he does play well. He obviously was at Richmond. He was at Gold Coast, and he'll choose someone. I feel like whoever gets him, it is a pretty good steal. He hasn't exploded yet, but he's kicked a few goals in the VFL, and he's been pretty damn good. So whoever chooses him, I hope they use him to the best ability that he can have, and we'll see how he goes from there. And before, one last thing. Recently, there's been big news about the North Melbourne benefit, the benefit that the AFL gave them. I don't know what to think of it, to be honest. I don't think they need it. There's worse teams than North. I feel like it's just I just can't really get my head around what it is. So they get 2 years of 2-round draft picks. I feel like you just got to think in the past. So North Melbourne, yeah, they're not a good team. They're not a good team at all. They're not I guess, taking it up to other teams. But you look at St Kilda, who haven't even made finals apart from this year for a decade. You just start to think, well, there's other clubs that have been bad for quite some time. And you look at North, so they've been obviously poor for quite some time. And I go all the way back to 2020. This was when North, obviously we had a shortened round, but they finished 17th. So they didn't get the first round draft pick, the first draft pick. And then in 2021, they finished last, and they get Jason Horne-Francis, who only stayed for 1 year when he's meant to stay for 2 years. So they haven't been that lucky with the way they've gone about things. And then obviously last year they finished last as well. So they haven't been good for quite some time. They finished 12th in 2019. But you just think about other clubs that have been poor for longer, and I feel like they need it more than North Melbourne do. If North Melbourne, I guess, make finals, or they start premierships and they start winning premierships, everyone's going to go back to this. The AFL helping North Melbourne with the benefit thing. I just feel like it's not great, because whatever happens with North, whether they're going to turn bad or whether they're going to become good, it's all going to go back to this thing. All the news, all the thoughts, everything involved is just going to go back to this. And I feel like whatever happens with North, it's not going to be that good. Even if they win a premiership, so just say they win 7 premierships in a row. I know it's not going to happen, but if they win 7 premierships in a row, maybe even 3, maybe even 2, the people are just going to go straight back to this benefit scheme and say the AFL has helped North Melbourne win a premiership. They didn't do it by themselves. I just don't like the sound of that, and I don't think North need it at all. So that's my take on things. I don't know how other people think about it, but I just don't think it's very good. I mean, credit to Clarko for, I guess, persuading the AFL to do so, but they have to use this opportunity. This is a massive benefit. They need to use this. So it's a massive talking point at the moment. And no matter what happens, they do get number 2 draft pick, the round 2 draft pick. So whether they make finals next year, they still get a youngster that's very, very good. And I just don't like the sound of that at all. As a North Melbourne fan, you'd like it, but I just feel like everyone's going to go back to the fact that North Melbourne are just being nice and baby cuddled by the AFL. We'll see how that turns out. But they have to use this. So if they don't win a premiership, North Melbourne, from this benefit, I would not know what to think. I feel like they should be abolished from the AFL if that is the case. But I think they'd have to win a premiership from what they've been given from the AFL, and I feel like they will do so. But let's move away from the news and just focus our eyes on the Brownlow Medal. It was one of the most entertaining Brownlow Medals I've ever witnessed. It was filled with hesitation, anticipation, and just pure skill. But I feel like, I wouldn't say it's rigged, but I'd say it was very interesting. Just the choices that were made, just the ways that the umpires saw things how they were. I mean, we talk about, Andrew Phillips, 3 votes for getting 12 disposals and 2 goals. I mean, give me a spell. 3 votes? Surely there's someone else on the field that did better than 12 disposals and 2 goals. Surely. We now go to Cameron. He had 25 touches and 6 goals against Carlton early on in the year. If there is not one bigger individual performance than that, I just cannot believe the fact how he got 1 vote. He single-handedly gave Geelong a sniff at winning that game. And yet he only gets 1 vote. I could not believe that. Nick Dacos, round 4, 0 votes, and he got 38 disposals and 2 goals. Dom Sheed, he got 3 votes in a 67-point loss. I cannot get over the fact that the umpires, they need to be able to access stats of games. They don't have it. Or else you get players that do nothing but convert oxygen to carbon dioxide, and they get 3 votes, and it just leaves the players that produce a quality game of football who don't even pick up a vote. You talk about Errol Goulden, 42 disposals and 2 goals. Only 1 vote. No one else played better than that. I just cannot get over the fact that the umpires need to look at the stats. They've got a lot to do. They have to umpire the game, and they have to find out who got best on. But please, I mean, honestly, if you tell me that someone is robbed of a Brownlow medal due to the fact that the umpires don't have access to the stats which they need, is just unbelievably poor. So poor. So I feel like, I mean, credit to Lachie Neale, he did well, but you look at his stats for the year, and I just want to think, okay, so as a Brownlow medalist, we look at Lachie Neale, he averages 26.9 disposals. As a Brownlow medalist, yeah, it's good, he's finding the pill, but as a Brownlow medalist, he's expected to be a bit more. Only 294 metres gained, so you wouldn't say that's amazing. But he's good around the stoppages, so you can sort of give him a bit of lenience there. He's good around the stoppages and possession, but I just feel like he's not as good as this man, Bontempelli, who placed second. If we have a look at Bontempelli, he averages 27.7 disposals, so he's already getting more than Neale. He's getting more contested possessions than Neale. He's getting more metres gained than Neale. He's getting more clearances than Neale. He's getting more score involvements than Lachie Neale. He's getting more kicks than Neale. Everything Bontempelli has done this year, I feel like has been better than Lachie Neale. I feel like Bontempelli was robbed, and I feel like a few others have been robbed of a few votes as well. So that's just my take on things. Overall, the way the Brownlow panned out, it was as rare as a rocking horse feces. I mean, the votes were unique and everything attached to it was quite entertaining. But, I mean, I was up and about when I was watching it. I just feel like there was a lot to it. There was a lot of controversy to it. Probably one of the most highly controversial Brownlow medals you'll ever see. And a lot of people probably agree as well. That will do the Brownlow medal. So... yeah, let's just leave it at that note. I don't want to get overheated with a Brownlow medal. Credit to Lachie Neale. Well done to Bontempelli. We'll see how it goes next year. But let's move away from the footy and move to the cricket. Australia versus India. One word. One word to describe how Australia have played. Disgraceful. The way they played was atrocious. I bloody hope they were experimenting with tactics and ways, I guess, to find players their best form leading up to the World Cup. Because if they aren't, this is just embarrassing as an Australian citizen. I don't care if you like cricket or not. If you're an Australian, I'm embarrassed. This is almost worse than the rugby at the moment, and I don't want to go even near the rugby at the moment because that will just set up another huge flame. But if we talk about Australian cricket right now, we've lost 5 ODIs in a row. 5 ODIs in a row. I can't get over how bad we are. We were top of the table. We were top of the table, and we were absolutely just jumping over rainbows, happy as Larry. We were winning with our eyes closed. No one challenged us. And then all of a sudden, you get a scare, you get a loss, and we just can't cope. We just fall down like dominoes. You get a loss, and you lose another, and you lose another, and you lose another. And soon enough, you're third on the ODI rankings. You've dropped 2 places, and you've lost 5 ODIs in a row. Far out. Yes, you can talk about injuries. Yes, there might be injuries that are present, but you need people to stand up. It is only Warner, who's an absolute fossil right now, who is batting right-handed and producing an innings that makes 5 more times than the whole damn team. He's making half the whole team's runs, and he's nearly hitting triple figures with his age. I mean, you look at the stats, right? So the first game against India, Warner made 52. Highest score, right? Good on him. Good on him. But he's retiring soon, so it's not great. Second innings, he makes 53. And yes, Sean Abbott made 54. But this is... you look at the top order. 9. A golden duck. 27. 6. 14. 19. If you want to be good and you want to win games of cricket, I don't care what format it is. I don't care what format it is, whether it's T20, whether it's ODI, whether it's Test. You need at least one person to make a damn big score. Australia have not been doing that. India have been doing that. We look at this first match where India win. They have a couple of people that make in their 70s. So you've got Shubman Gill who got 74, and some bloke I can't even pronounce that got 71. You got Rahul who got 58 not out, right? You look at Australia, 52. That's about the only thing that stands out, and guess who? It's Warner. We go to the second match. India, Shubman Gill 104. Another bloke 105. Yadav 72. And Rahul 52. So you got people who are producing big scores. They made 399. Australia get rolled for 217. And it was Warner who made 53. I mean, far out. Far out. Australia cannot play without head. They cannot play without their main players, and that is concerning because they're only aging, they're only getting older, and if we can't find young people, Australia will be ending up like the West Indies. I hope that this doesn't continue on. I hope that they're just experimenting and they're putting players in different roles to hopefully find a spark to, I guess, explode in the World Cup. It better be, because if it isn't, I don't know what to say, to be honest. If Australia cannot do any good in the World Cup, I just feel like I'd really want to leave the planet. I feel like the cricket at the moment, I've sort of lost interest in the cricket due to the fact that Australia are just so bad. I'd rather watch the rugby at the moment, and we're losing 96-0, but that is fine. I just feel like the cricket, Australia are so well known for being cricketers. We're so well known. Beautiful day on the summer beach. You have a trundle. You have a stick. Australia love cricket. We can't bloody play cricket at the moment. I'm going to go off my nuts, so I'm going to hold myself there. Let's leave cricket and let's go to a bit of news for the BBL. New kits, new jerseys for all the teams. I don't know if I like it or not. I don't have a lot of thoughts at the moment just due to the fact that Australia is so bad in the cricket. I can't get over it. Let's just move away from the cricket itself. Okay, BBL, new kits. That's it. I'm done. The BBL cricket, you can just go and get beat because I've just had enough of Australia. Until Australia win, I'm not speaking a word of cricket until they bloody win. Australia, you're known for winning, mate. Start bloody winning. Do what 25 million people in this country. There's 11 of you in the team. Do 25 or 26 or whatever the damn population of Australia is proud. You're not going to see this, but if you do, Cricket Australia, or if you do, Steve Smith, or if you do, whoever is in the team, if you see this, I know you're not, but if you do, play for us. Play for us. You got people who are mad cricket fans, people that want to be in the team, people that want to play for the green and gold. Bloody oath, they'll be playing for the green and gold soon if you blokes don't play well. So start playing well, start winning games. You play games and you start winning, and I'll shut up. And I'll shut up if you start winning. It's all about winning. I don't care if you're having fun. If you're not having fun, get off the sport, get off the planet and fall into a black hole, because I've had enough of you blokes. You better start winning. I've said I'm going to shut up soon, but I'm not going to shut up anytime soon at all. Cricket Australia, you start winning. You start winning, Cricket Australia, and I'll shut up. I'll shut up. Thank you. Back to the BBL, new kits. I don't know if I like it or not. I feel like it's alright. About to lose my voice, so I guess we'll just end it there. Wow. So we've covered a bit. Covered the 2 games, Collingwood and the Giants. Covered Brisbane and Carlton. We've previewed the grand final. We've talked about news away from the field. We've talked about the Brownlow Medal. And we've talked about cricket. 30 minutes gone. That'll wrap us up. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I should have recommended to put the volume down earlier. You probably already did, but thank you everyone for listening. I'll see you next week, and I hope you have a beautiful week. Whoever you're going for in the grand final, I hope you have a safe weekend. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week.